All right, we're live. Thank you everyone for joining this live Q&A format with Jeremy Gray, Tiger Kim from Pure Tungsten, as well as Mario Innecco from the wildly famous Maneco64 YouTube channel. We're here to answer your questions, so please feel free to ask your questions in the chat box on the right side of your screen. First, Jeremy, the word to you. Perhaps you can give an introduction on what Pure Tungsten is all about.
Thank you, Sion. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Yeah, Pure Tungsten is it's purely tungsten. We've got a world-class mine in South Korea, Sanjon, that's about to start in June, and we also have a very rich high-grade mine in Tajikistan as our two key focuses going forward in terms of production. And it's just worth putting a bit of a background here. I mean, probably some of you have noticed that the price of tungsten has gone from $30,000 a ton to $300,000 a ton, which is amazing move. And you know, some guys are saying it could go to $1 million a ton, but it's all very good to, if you're not producing, that really doesn't mean very much. And this is what's so important for us, is that we're going into production, we're going to make hay while the sun shines and really take advantage of this incredible price, because a lot of the tungsten stories out there are sort of exploration plays, 2029, 2030 production stories. But we are really the most advanced restart in the industry. We're right next door to our Monty Industries, just 34 kilometers down the road from there. Beautiful Sandong mine, we're Sanjon. So we're just really excited to be turning on Sanjon and having Tiger Kim as our CEO leading the charge, and so excited about the business. We're also very excited for Mario to our Innecco, Maneco64 to be, who's on our board of Chancery Royalty, to be coming on our visit in April to South Korea. Maybe I'll hand it over now to Mario just to say a couple of words also.
Yes, as most of you know, I'm a gold and silver proponent, but the point about gold and silver is that the comeback of those metals signifies also the comeback of hard assets, and tungsten is part of that. And yeah, I haven't seen like a metal go up as much as it has in a year. I think it's at the highest level in terms of purchasing power in 90 years. And the confluence of like supply and what's happening geopolitically makes it really important that the West has some access to tungsten, a lot more access to tungsten, because the market is controlled by China now, about 82%. So I'm really looking forward to going to South Korea and meeting the CEO, Tiger, and going to the mine on the 21st of April.
Excellent. And perhaps we can give the word to Tiger for a second to walk through your thoughts of the Sanjon mine, as well as where the current project is currently standing.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Tiger Kim, currently running our Sanjon mine in Korea, which is one of two major tungsten mines in Korea. And yes, I am excited to be in this market, which we would say is a perfect storm for the tungsten. And I'm also excited that Sanjon mine will be operating mine in 2-3 months' time. When I jumped into the tungsten industry, which was back in 2010, as a CEO of Sangdong Mine, which is currently held by Almonty. The reason why I actually changed my hat from investment banking to tungsten industry is because I believe, I had a strong belief that someday tungsten is become a critical mineral which will be needed by the world, everyone. And it took longer than I expected, but now it is happening. As the Jeremy mentioned earlier, yes, we do have a Sanjon mine, which will be producing shortly. And on top of that, we have found this beautiful high-grade mine in the country, Tajikistan, which is one of these Central Asian countries, where everybody believes that will be the source of all the critical minerals. And ultimately, with the depleting resources in China, Central Asian countries will play a critical role in taking over or replacing China in the long run. But anyway, one slight disagreement with Jeremy about the tungsten price. Yes, it is important to take advantage of this high price environment. But if we understand the demand supply structure of tungsten is fairly different from other metals, including other critical minerals like nickel or lithium, where we have seen a sudden surge of the price, then at the same time, a fairly rapid the drop of the prices. But in case of tungsten, as the Mario mentioned, it has been dominated by the China, over 80% for the past several decades. And China is facing rapidly depleting the tungsten mines, and some of many of the small to medium-sized tungsten mines got closed, and China is controlling their production quota. So, and at the same time, all the good mines in outside of China, there has not been any new good mines. It has been old mines, and so a lot of them were already taken by Chinese. And Chinese obviously wants to sort of secure additional sources outside of China to replace or at least supplement their depleting mines, tungsten mines inside China. So, and that I'm trying to say is that the price of tungsten, yes, which has increased almost 7 to 8 and now almost 9 to 10 fold, but we may have some sort of consolidation in the near future, but the current price level, I believe, is going to be maintained in a long term.
That's, of course, an incredibly interesting macro outlook. Thank you for that, Tiger. Perhaps you can give a short overview also where the Sanjon mine is currently standing and how long you think it would be until you could be producing before we go through the questions.
Okay. Actually, we took over the Sanjon mine from the German company, which had the mining rights as well as they got into a mining concession agreement. And they have done almost 3 years of preparation, all this verification of resources and deposit. But unfortunately, they were facing some conflict with local partners, so they could not do anything. And we were lucky to sort of take over this a good asset from them, and which was back in October 23. And since then, almost 2.5 years, we've been busy preparing and turning this old working mine into producing mines. And now we have developed all this transportation access. And as of today, we are ready to hit the first blast of high-grade mine. Only thing remaining is that we need to fill and install equipment, which is on its way from China, and we will do the test running and commissioning in 2 months' time. And that's why we are expecting, or we are planning to have commercial production toward the end of June, which is only 2-3 months away. That's the current situation with Sanjon. And once we get started, of course, I mean, as every mine goes through, we may have several months of sort of trials and errors and ramp-up period. But ultimately, we believe we will reach our full production level, which is almost 1,000 tons of W3 tungsten concentrate, 65%, in 3 to 4 months' time. So we'll be fully operational from second half of this year.
Yeah, that's definitely a very exciting future. Quick reminder for everyone watching, thank you for joining first and foremost, but also we're here to answer your questions. So if you have any questions for the team here, as well as Mario Innecco on the macro perhaps around this, feel free to ask your questions in the chat box. Would love to get started with the first question from Gunther Strobel. What is the status regarding the merger of Pure Tungsten and GBI?
Okay, let me comment on that first. I think that's very the good question. Actually, we started a discussion with the Jeremy and the Pure Tungsten group back in July, August last year. But unfortunately, we had some delay, but now everything has been sorted out. Now 100% of GBI shareholders are in full agreement, and we have already gotten into the process of obtaining Bank of Korea's approval for the merger, and we believe this Bank of Korea's approval will be granted sometime next week. Not next month, it's going to be next week. So I would say maybe first week of April, we can announce the completion or closure of the merger between GBI and Pure Tungsten.
Any additional comments from your side, Jeremy, before we go to the next question?
No, just super proud that the merger is happening, and what an amazing opportunity for our shareholders and also new shareholders. I mean, at this valuation round of 125 million Canadian, you've got a business that's nearly the same size as Almonty that has a market cap of 6 billion. So it's just down the road. The potential, I think, is just incredible. And sometimes, all the harder you work, the luckier you get. And Tiger's been at this for as we said, for 5-6 years, getting its mind ready. So sometimes you just get lucky and the cycle's ready to turn. And as Tiger said, the market could stay very strong for a long time because there's just no supply, apart from the fact that our Sanjon mine and Almonty's Sandong mine were the only two new mines coming on in the West in 2026, which is quite amazing, isn't it, when you think about it? And they're just 34 kilometers apart from each other.
That is definitely quite amazing. We have another question lined up from Arne Luch. Thank you for swinging by, Arne. How relevant is CIF Rotterdam pricing versus SMM China? Price making shifting from west to east. I guess perhaps first comments from Tiger.
Well, obviously, since China is controlling the market, and the price, likewise, the price has been sort of set by the Chinese, and because of this absolute shortage of this tungsten stock, the quotation in the Western the market has not been really the meaningful. It just simply re-quote whatever the tungsten price quoted by the Chinese entities, like the Asian metals in China. Now, unlike the metals, the tungsten, I would say almost 97% of tungsten concentrate are produced to the off-takers in a long-term off-take agreement, which means there is no spot market, no forward market in tungsten space. So everybody has been watching how the tungsten price movement in China. But now we are looking at a little bit of separation of the quotations of China domestic tungsten prices and tungsten price in the West, because China is imminently or immediately affected by the government policy, whether they have put more or stricter ban on the exports. And at the same time, most important thing is their production quota. And Chinese government has been reducing their production quota almost every quarter. And they internally told to the Chinese manufacturer that they will continue to do the quarterly production control up until the end of 28, at least. And this is in order for them to prepare sort of a sudden depletion or sudden drop of their control in global tungsten markets.
I think it's fair to say, would it be fair to say, Tiger, that you could sell Sanjon's output 10 times over, given the current market? Is that effective?
Well, there is absolute shortage, and all this geopolitical tension between China, U.S. Obviously, one of the major applications these days, most important application is the defense industry, all the munitions, right? And now the war, everybody's saying, say for example, the Iran and the U.S. is conflict in the Middle East. People are saying who has more missiles, right? Which means who has more tungstens. And as far as I understand, even the U.S. government, they have admitted that their thorable tungsten warehouse is almost empty, and they are looking to refill those inventories. So yes, I mean, the reality and actual market quotation are not identical. It's very different in Western world.
I remember just one thing, Stein. Someone, Alexander, a good friend of mine, told me the other day that one of the reasons historians say the Germans lost, and obviously this is a big can of worms here, but was because they ran out of tungsten in the Second World War.
That is incredible. Mario, perhaps this is an incredible time also to include you in the discussion. Perhaps you can take us along where your thesis for tungsten is coming from and where your interest, why it's being spiked.
Well, I did a promotional video for a tungsten company just over a year ago, and the price was a lot lower. And I have been following tungsten a little bit, but it's hard in the West to keep track of the price. But after I joined Chancery Royalty, Jeremy mentioned tungsten, and I've looked further into it. And the thing about Pure Tungsten and the Sanjon mine is that the grade there is quite high. It's almost double what the average in China is. So even if the price were to correct, and I'm not a specialist in the price, I think the cost of production at Sanjon is still going to make it highly profitable. And apart from the defense side of it, I think it's really important for heavy industry, semiconductors. And the thing about the defense part is that all the tungsten used for missiles, they can't be recycled like drill bits with the tungsten carbide. So unfortunately, the world seems to be becoming more and more uncertain geopolitically, and wars seem to be the norm. And we have to talk as well about the Ukraine war, which has been going on for 4 years. I'm sure they've gone through a lot of tungsten too. So that's why I'm interested, because it's one of the hard assets. We've been for 40 years just financializing everything, and now people are realizing, wow, we've become totally dependent on the Chinese, and now we've got this problem. We've got no resources, and it takes. I mean, Tiger is probably he's a lot more knowledgeable than me, but it probably takes quite a few years to have a tungsten mine. To build a tungsten mine, you have to do the exploration and everything. And this mine in Korea, it's been like in a time capsule, like Jeremy said recently, and it's just turning it back on. I know Tiger's done quite a lot of work in the last few years, so that's how I see it.
Thank you, Mario, for taking us along there. And for anyone watching, thank you for your active participation, asking the questions, but keep them rolling. Also, if you have any specific ones for Mario, just let us know. Next question we have from Hendrik Brugge. What is your go public strategy for Pure Tungsten? I guess, Jeremy, you are a great person to take that one.
We're looking at Q3 of this year. We're talking to various different groups. Definitely New York is an option for Tiger to list. We spoke with a very large group who came to London last week to meet us for that idea. We're talking to a group on the ASX who are really keen to work with us to list in Australia, and also the TSX in London. So there's a lot of options that we're considering, but obviously we do want to list as soon as possible. And but we do also want to be producing at Sanjon first. That's our #1 focus in these coming weeks, to get Sanjon producing. And yeah, but it's what a time to list, eh? The market's very strong. EQ Resources is up 10 times our Monty. We all know about our Monty. Guardian Metals, tremendous story. They're explorers. Yeah, definitely want to get out of the gates as quickly as possible.
Excellent. Thank you, Jeremy. Next question we have from Andrew D. Angelis. Tiger, could you talk about the commercial strategy upon successful restart in Korea? How are you thinking about maximizing the value/leverage of your NT production material available?
So I'd say his question is how we're gonna maximize, how we're gonna leverage. Is that the question? Sorry, can you
Yes, yes.
recap?
How are you thinking about maximizing the value, and how are you going to leverage this production material available?
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, out of tungsten mines, it has been the case that the standard 65% W3 concentrate has been produced and sold, which are normally sold to the processing company, which turns the 65% concentrate to the APT. But one great thing about the recent high price environment tungsten is that now the world, including China, they are and all these processing companies, they are in desperate need of raw material, which is tungsten. So these days they do not want high grade concentrate. They want even lower grade. They welcome lower grade tungsten concentrate like 20%, 30%. So one of the changes of our strategy of the Sanjon mine is that yes, we do have our Sanjon mine, and we had a plan to produce 20% concentrate through the gravity method and move it to the Hooper plant, where we will upgrade this 20% concentrate to 65% concentrate. But since a lot of people want lower grade concentrate, we are actually in negotiation with one of the Asian processing company, largest in the world, outside China, of course, actually tolling our 20% concentrate directly to 99.7% tungsten oxide. Through the tolling. In other words, they will convert our concentrate to the tungsten oxide, YTO, BTO, and we will get it back to Korea or somewhere else where, I mean, anybody wants our tungsten. That's the revised strategy. So by doing that, we can maximize the value, not only reducing the sort of a loss ratio. By going straight from 20% to 99.7%, we can maximize the value of our concentrate. In other words, the recovery ratio will be raised and loss rate will be lessened. Now, I'm so glad that right before our Sanjon production, we had a room or sort of flexibility of adopting this strategy. Once we have already established, it's going to be very difficult to adopt to the recent changes.
Excellent. Thank you, Tiger, for taking us along there. The next question we have is from Sebastian Evers. What is the current status of the open financing, and what's the strategy to advance the Bodo asset in Brazil? I think, Jeremy, perhaps you can take a stab at this one.
Yeah, the financing last week was, I got to say, the busiest week we in the team have ever seen for Pure Tungsten. The response, and maybe it's unfortunately because of the war, and there's a growing understanding of the price out there. A lot of people are following the price that's set every Friday afternoon, and I think, yeah, it's really tremendous interest. So I expect this round, the 5 million Canadian round, will be complete by the end of next Friday, this coming Friday. So yeah, tremendous response. Bodo is definitely not in our near-term focus because we have such big, large, world-class mines, Sanjon and Mikahara in Tajikistan. So we're putting that one on the back burner for now. And we've just got so much to get on with in Korea and Tajikistan to get to 4,000 tons a year. These are big, high-grade mines. You can see that video there, Stein. Look at, there's Mikahara. Now, Mikahara, this is I mean, Tiger managing to secure this. Stalin's, during World War II, that mine supplied 1/3 of Stalin's needs during the war for tungsten. And you can see that brown sort of sandy stuff in the middle of the screen. That's 1 million tons plus of tailings that Tiger thinks are about 0.4%. So you're lucky to get a mine that's 0.4%. This mine historically was over 1%, and it might just be one of the richest big scale mines in the world. I know a lot of guys say they've got the richest tungsten mine, but they're often the narrow vein stuff, small tonnage, maybe 2%, maybe 3%, but very narrow vein, small tonnage. What you're looking at there, I think, is the Escondida. If you know Escondida for copper, this is the Escondida for tungsten, and Pure Tungsten and Tiger are basically, this is a big focus for us to start production at Mikahara. Maybe Tiger, you could just talk about the tailings project, processing that yellow tailings, perhaps.
Yes, Jeremy. It's, as I said, we will be producing in Korea out of Sanjon mine in the June, July from this year. But at the same time, we are targeting the reprocessing of these tailings, which is not what I thought. Actually, we did a lot of testing of the samples from these tailings. It's close to 0.4%, which is amazing as a tailings. And which means how good this mine was back in the Soviet era 50 years ago. So while we are preparing this Tajikistan mine, which is called Maihura, into the fully producing mine, but it is going to take, as the Mario pointed out, all the bigger, particularly the big mines, it takes at least 3 to 4 years to produce. But from this year, reprocessing of tailings is a much simpler process. And incidentally, we have taken over the processing plant as well. So only thing we need is the trucking these tailings from this tailings dam to our processing plant, which is about 1 hour away, and start producing through this tailings reprocessing. And because of this high grade, if we are to sort of process about 300,000 tons per annum, which will give us at least 3 years, because we believe there's more than 1 million tons of tailings sitting there. For during the preparation period of the main mine of Maihura, this tailings will give us about 800 tons of tungsten concentrate. If you recall, I told you our Sanjon mine will produce about 1,000 tons annually. So you can have some relative the size of the concentrate production out of Maihura tailings.
Yeah, that's incredible. And Tiger, perhaps you can very quickly explain also what your cost basis would roughly be at Sanjon, as well as what you could expect it to be if you were to reprocess the tailings to really show the leverage that it shows compared to current tungsten price.
Absolutely. Well, as I think Mario mentioned, that the important thing is cost competitiveness. And in the metal or mining industry, actually the primary driver or the elements of cost competitiveness is the grade. Let's say you have a gold mine and you have, let's say, 20 gram per ton, and the other gold mine has 5 gram per ton, and you use the same the mining and processing cost. So, but the end result will be 4 times. Exactly, the same thing applies. Our Sanjon mine is 0.46% average grade, which is more than twice of global and Chinese average. Our Tajikistan mine, the tailings itself is close to 0.4%, but the main mine is close to 1%. That will give us a lot of the cost advantage in our operation. To give you some ideas, based on the survey and the data, currently China, including the state-owned companies, their average production cost is between $200 to $240 per MTU. In tungsten industry, we use this metric ton unit, which basically represents 10 kilograms of concentrate. So to produce 10 kilograms of tungsten concentrate, the Chinese mines, they spend about 200 or slightly over 200. And Western mines, because of the lower grade, and although they are open pits, the lower grade, the average cost is over 300 or 330. Oh, well, still with 300 or 330, they are enjoying beautiful margins in this high price environment. But to give you some idea about our Sanjon mine, it's going to be around $120. So, which is rough, about 50 to 60% of Chinese cost. So that gives us cost competitiveness. So even when the price comes back, which I personally believe is not going to be the case, we are competitive to even to the Chinese competitors.
Yeah, truly incredible leverage. Thank you, Tiger, for taking us along there as well. For anyone watching, please feel free to ask your questions. We are here to answer them, and we'll go them through a first come, first served basis. Next question we have is actually for Jeremy. With such a low valuation compared to your peers, are you concerned about a takeover or a buyout?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I can confirm that one of the majors has expressed an interest, but I don't want to say too much. And we want to obviously list and rebuild our valuation and become a much higher value. So any takeover would be only subject to a significant uplift from the current round at 50 cents. You can be assured of that. And we have enough votes to turn any cheeky takeover down. So I suspect, that's definitely coming if the market continues the way it's as I think it will be. I mean, like I said, I read a report that tungsten's going to $1 million a ton. Now, I don't know how serious you can take that, but it's currently 300,000. So all we want to do now is make sure that Tiger has the funds that he needs to turn Pure Tungsten into a world-class operating business in South Korea and Tajikistan, but also to explore other growth opportunities that he's also seriously looking at right now. So, definitely, we are a takeover target, that's for sure.
And Mario, how are you thinking about maximizing shareholder value, and how would you answer that question of a potential buyout?
Well, I think Jeremy is right. We need to list the company first to realize the full potential, and also I think starting to mine in late June, early July, that's really important as well, to show the world that it's a producing asset. So yeah, I mean, I think it's like Jeremy said, I think they're going to have to wait if they want to take over the company. I wouldn't let go of it.
Don't let go of it too early. All right, well understood. Next question we have is from Sepa Hoff, 1982. Can you give us an overview of take-off agreements, or what is your plan regarding who you intend to sell the concentrate to? Thanks and greetings from Germany, Sebastian. Tiger, perhaps you can take a stab at that.
Yes. One good thing about our Sanjon and Tajikistan, and if before I answer that the Offtake question, I mean, well, we certainly do not want to build ourselves too thin over many projects. But by the time we are getting into the IPO or going public, I would say it's not going to be only Sanjon as a producing mine and Tajikistan reprocessing the tailings and producing, but there will be at least a couple of more very high quality tungsten mines will be part of the Pure Tungsten's portfolio for sure. Now, we have not gotten into any offtake agreement with anyone officially, which means all this 1,000 tons out of Sanjon and the Maihura in 2-3 years time, it's going to produce between 3,000 to 4,000, and a couple more other tungsten assets. All this offtake all together. We have not gotten into any. We have not done any commitment to anybody, which is a very big advantage for us in this world, since everybody, particularly Western, tungsten processing companies, they are desperately looking for a good source of tungsten supply, and this will be our leverage, right? We will be in a position to negotiate with major tungsten processing companies around the world, and as we have seen in the case of Almonte's Sanjon mine and all other cases, for the main development funds or financing will come from through the project finance. And normally once we get into the offtake agreement with these major processing companies, these processing companies tends to provide their guarantee and the support, making the project financing easier. because we don't want to spend all this valuable shareholders' money into the development process. It has to be the project finance mostly. And in order for us to have competitive project financing, we need backup from the off-takers. So that's what we are waiting for. Not committing too early.
Can I add one point here? Because I had a lot of conversations last year with commodity offtake buyers, the big commodity houses, and none of them would write a check. And I said, well, this is crazy. Why don't you guys write a check to secure offtake? And I know why. It's because they've all endured 50 years of bear markets, and none of them believe the price would go above 1,000, let alone 2,000 or 3,000. So a lot of them have been flat-footed, and we've remained a free agent because no one would actually step up and write a check for Tiger. I'm talking 10, 20, 30 million. And of course, now they're all wanting to be Tiger's best friend. But it's amazing how an industry that's been in a long bear market, and let's be honest, it's been since 1974, 52 years, this industry has been a nuclear winter. And one of the reasons now why the market, I think, will stay very strong for a long time, like Tiger said, was because there's been no money invested and no funding available. And all of these commodity trading houses who are now Tiger's best friend, you need to write a big check if you want security of supply. That's a message out there.
Well, thank you for the additional color, Jeremy. Really appreciate it. And Tiger as well. Thank you for taking a stab at that. For anyone watching, just a quick reminder, please feel free to ask your questions to both the Pure Tungsten team, Jeremy and Tiger here, as well as Mario Innecco. We're here to answer your questions. Next question is again from Henrik Brugge. What is the capital expenditure needed for the Tajikistan project to get up and running? And how are you planning on financing this? Tiger, perhaps you can take a stab at this one.
Okay. We expect total capex to development of the main mine of Tajikistan, Maykura, is going to take between 60 to 80 million US dollars for the full production, until the full production. And what we are currently contemplating is actually that includes some of the extra cost we need for the tailings reprocessing. And our plan is to arrange the vast majority through the project financing, like 50 to 60 million through the project financing. And there are several possibilities for that. Is number one, once we get into, our plan is to turn this 1,000 pages of the Soviet report, drilling report and deposit report and feasibility study into JO 43-101 compliant reports in several months' time, and using that, which basically means the bankable feasibility study, we can get this for project finance from the market. And another possibility is that GBI was nominated by Korean government as a critical mineral stabilization leadership company, which means we have access to Korea's strategic fund, which was set aside by the government to stabilize its supply chain of the critical minerals. That could be a second alternative. And thirdly, as we previously mentioned, once we get into some offtake agreement with major Western tungsten consumer, that will provide us some the guarantees or the backup, which will give us give us very competitive project financing. So to summarize, yes, it's going to be 60 to 80 million dollars to be spent to produce between 3,000 and 4,000 tons of tungsten concentrate out of Maykura, with a vast majority of which will be financed through project finance.
Yeah, and you went past that pretty quickly, Tarek, but I think it's a pretty big deal, the Critical Mineral Supply Chain Stabilization Fund. Perhaps you could outline how big of a deal changer that could potentially be for Pure Tungsten.
Okay. Unfortunately, unlike North Korea, where they are very mineral rich, the South Korea has not been the resource rich countries. We've been lacking a lot of the minerals, particularly critical minerals. And we have realized, and our government has realized, the importance of securing a very stable supply chain of critical minerals. I mean, as we all know, not only the defense industry, the semiconductor, which is one of the major application of tungsten, and even the battery areas, the same thing. So the Korean government has set aside almost a 50 trillion won, which I would say is about the 50 billion US dollars as a strategic critical mineral stabilization fund. And the company nominated by the Korean government as a critical mineral stabilization leadership will have an access to those funds. So that is the merit of becoming critical mineral stabilization leadership company, which the GBI, our company, is from the second half of last year.
Truly, truly incredible. Thank you, Tiger, for taking us along. Next question from Seba Hoff, 1982. Are there any other projects or acquisition targets you're focusing on, or are you focusing 100% on South Korea and Tajikistan? Of course, Tiger, you already highlighted this a bit earlier, but perhaps you can shortly recap that again.
Okay. Yes, there will be. And actually, we've been approached and we are exploring these good opportunities. I can tell you without naming those projects yet, because we haven't signed anything. Tajikistan, for example, this Maikura mine we have the Takeover is just one of many tungsten mines there. And we are in discussion with the Tajikistan government about expanding laterally to include those assets. Actually, they are not far from our Maikura mine. So that could be one of the opportunities. And at the same time, we are talking to another Central Asian countries about doing similar thing, which we are doing in Tajikistan. That's the two things. And Jeremy, you've been approached by some European tungsten mines, quality mines, about possibility of joining hand with us.
Yes, we are looking at one in Portugal right now, Tiger, as you know, and very excited about the potential there as well. And Almonte has a producing mine down the road from that, so that'd be kind of ironic. We're always next door to Almonte. So yeah, lots of opportunities. Obviously, at the moment, our focus right now is getting Sanjon producing, getting some nice runs on the board, taking advantage of this record tungsten price.
And Mario, what do you think of this business model of using South Korea, Sanjon mine as a springboard, as well as Tajikistan actually, to potentially build a global tungsten producing company?
Well, I guess it's yeah, it gives the springboard because the Korean mine Sanjon we know that it produced and it's just been sitting there. So we don't have, we can start right away, like Tiger said, end of June, beginning of July. And also in Tajikistan, I didn't realize that that's where a third of all the tungsten that Stalin used was taken from. So yeah, it decreases the risk, and because in 3-4 years time a lot could change, so it gives Pure Tungsten like a step ahead of a lot of people, I would say, a lot of prospects. And the other thing, geopolitically, having South Korea and Tajikistan, it kind of balances out a bit, the risk, because they're fairly different countries, I would say. So
yeah, definitely an interesting balance between upside and risk, like you outlined, Mario. We have a question from Günther Strobel. Tiger, could you explain the planned downstream projects in Tajikistan in layman's terms?
Downstream?
Yeah, the downstream projects, but perhaps upstream. I think he more means like down in the timelines.
Okay. Actually, we have, although we haven't gotten into any offtake agreement, we do have our Korean partnership company, which is YG1, which is the largest and mill machine tool producer in the world. Not in Korea, it's in the world. Fairly big company, which actually 16% of which is owned by Warren Buffett, Berkshire Hathaway. And we have been discussing with the YG1 and Tajikistan government about establishing middle stream to downstream in that country, because Tajikistan, as a country which desperately needs the industrialization, they want not only the mine development, resource development, they want some facilities or plant which will process this raw material into the industrial goods, or middle stream, downstream products. So we have gotten into the MOU, a three-party MOU, the GBI, the YG1 and Tajikistan government, Ministry of Industry and New Technology, about this long-term project of building a supply chain in Tajikistan. And we believe it's going to happen in 2-3 years' time, when our development of the main mine, Maihura, is done, and Maihura's main mine is to start producing. I think that's when probably we will start building this middle to downstream in Tajikistan.
Perfect. Thank you, Tiger. We have another question. I suppose that you can take a stab at. What does the Korean government want in return for the funding that we talked about earlier through the Critical Mineral Supply Chain Stabilization Fund? Is it a loan, or do they want equity, or what else could they potentially be looking for?
Well, in forms of which type, it could be both equity and the project finance, the loan. But obviously, we prefer to use the loan. And what the Korean government wants out of this, providing the strategic fund, is very simple. They want tungsten to be used by Korean end users like Samsung, SK in the semiconductor. They want tungsten for K-defense industry.
Perfect. Excellent. We have a question from Alexantibi, 6096. Hi, Jeremy and Tiger. Can you give some color on the project financing you have lined up? Who's providing it and under what terms? I presume as a follow-up question to what we were talking about earlier.
Right.
We haven't done project financing. We don't need project financing for Sanjon because we've raised everything with equity. Obviously, the Korean government are very supportive of expanding Sanjon, and also there's a drilling campaign that will be funded by the Korean government, I believe, Tiger. That's correct.
But yeah, that's correct.
Project financing would be very much when we after our phase 1 tailings project in Mikahara in Tajikistan, that can all be funded from equity, is to do a much bigger project funding for the mine. I think that's fair to say. Is that, Tiger? And hi to Alex. Hope you have fun in Mexico. Thank you.
That is more or less correct. Yes, the project finance will be used for the main capital expenditure for Maihura mine and other mines to come.
Perfect. So, gentlemen, as a quick follow-up question on that from my side, would you then also say that after this financing, the Sanjon mine is fully financed to restart?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, there's a lot of work already gone into this, as you've seen with Larstein. It's a fully built mill, fully built mine. Obviously, we're waiting for the equipment to arrive for the underground crushing and shaking tables. But apart from that, it's ready to go. In fact, Tiger's mining right now, so we're stockpiling, and it's very advanced. And yeah, we're very proud to what he's achieved, and very thankful for all of our shareholders on this call who've supported us over this last year as we've got this really going. I mean, I know when we first started talking with Tiger, the price was about $40,000 a ton. I mean, I never in my wildest dreams would have imagined it now $300,000 a ton. But yeah, she's a world-class mine, and she's a very young mine. I mean, look, we're simple gold miners, as a lot of people know. But one thing that was obvious when I visited with Tiger with the team is that this could run for the next 40, 50 years, Sanjon. It's a very young mine that's got so much potential.
Perfect. And Jeremy, perhaps this is a great time to also, we have 1 or 2 more questions lined up after this, but a great time to also explain how people can potentially reach out to Pure Tungsten if they're interested after this live stream.
Yeah, just click on the More button below on the screen there. Click on Pure Tungsten. Ed, Max, Jamila, Eric, and myself are available 24/7. Jamila's based in Arizona. Eric's in Asia. Eric, the rest of the team are in Europe. So we're always available, and we're happy to reach out. Just leave your name, your email, and your phone number if you'd like to get involved. And as we've done with all of our companies, and a lot of our investors have supported us on all of our 6 companies, and we're all about making sure that they do very well when they list. And this listing, I think, could be at much higher multiples than the current round at 50 cents. So very keen to reach out and talk to you. And, by all means, just give us a shout. So, and thank you for everyone who supported us so far with Tiger.
Perfect. Appreciate that, Jeremy. We have a question from Mountain Man Projects. Given the number of rounds of fundraising, there are concerns about continued dilution. Can you please tell us how many more rounds of capital raises you are expecting?
Well, this is definitely the last pre-IPO round. It fully funds Sanjon. We have, after this round, we'll have about 250 million shares out. So even if we were to say list at $1.50 from the current round of 50 cents, then the market cap's still a fraction of EQ Resources. It's a minute fraction of Almonte. So, and we have no debt also. So I think, the next round will be at a much higher valuation than the current one. But I think, once you're producing and the numbers that Tiger are talking about, I mean, your margins at today's price are nearly 90%. So I don't think we'll need to be coming back to the market anytime soon. Fingers crossed. Touch wood.
Perfect. You also quickly want to take a stab at that, Tiger? What your thoughts are on that question?
Well, yes. As I said, as we said, the Sanjon is fully funded, and for the preparation, I mean, this the use of capital or proceed out of this rounds will be primarily for the Tajikistan mine for the preparation works, including this Joe 4311 report publication, as well as some sort of a reinforcement of infrastructure to the access road to the tailings dam, etc. And other than that, as Jeremy pointed out, I don't think the major the funding until the IPO. But if we do, it's going to be at much higher valuation to minimize the dilution to existing shareholders.
Excellent. Perfect. Mario, when were you going again to South Korea?
I'm flying out on the 19th of April. Getting there on the 20th, and I guess I'm gonna go visit the mine with Tiger and Eric on the 21st. So I'm looking forward to it. I've never been to South Korea, so yeah, very excited.
Should we also expect a video or a live stream when you're on site, Mario?
Yeah, no, that would be great. I mean, I did a few in Ethiopia, so now I'm gonna do a few in South Korea.
Yeah. And we just open the invitation to anyone on this call that would like to come to South Korea on the trip. But I can tell you, Tiger's an amazing host. Korea is the most amazing country. It's so modern. People are just the most friendly. And, you drive from Seoul to Sanjon on a 4-lane highway, don't you, Stein? It's just...
It's incredibly modern, that's for sure.
Amazing. The Wi-Fi, everything on site's incredible. Like, it's just the most amazing country, and it's a great time of year. It's cherry blossom season. Is that right, Tiger?
Yeah.
Is it
April, early April, mid-April is cherry blossom, correct. It's beautiful.
That sounds stunning, definitely. We are approaching slowly the end of this Q&A, so if you have any last-minute questions, feel free to put them in the chat box. For now, this seems to be the last question. Does the capital structure contain a blocking stake for early takeovers? I guess a continuation of the trends we touched upon early.
I think with Tiger's shareholding, and yes, it would that be right, Tiger? If we were to get a takeover when we list, we'd have enough to make sure that we can't get bought cheaply.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's correct. Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, anyone who has to pay up significantly if they want to get with this beautiful business. I mean, this is a substantial tungsten business, right? Let's be totally honest. You know, I mean, apart from EQ Resources and now Monty, there's nothing that comes close to what we have in the Western world, and we're very, very proud of what Tiger's doing and the whole team.
Excellent, Jeremy. Any final words from your side before we head off?
No, I just want to thank everyone for joining. Thank Mario. I'm so proud that Mario's on the board of Chancery, and so very happy that he's going to travel to Korea. Thank you, Mario, for joining, and thank you, Tiger, and of course, Stein. You and Lars do a great job. Just reach out to us if you'd like to get involved. We're very excited about Pure Tungsten, and yeah, thank you so much for joining today.
Excellent, Tiger. You also want to take a stab at some last words?
Well, obviously, the Mario is coming in the week of April 20th. Anybody on that time or timing or at any time is more than welcome. We'll arrange a nice trip down to the mine. So please don't hesitate. If you have any chance, please come visit us.
Excellent. And Mario will put a link. There is a link to your channel in the description. Perhaps some last words on what they should expect from the site visit and on Pure Tungsten content.
Well, I mean, I'm gonna really enjoy this trip, I think, and I'd like to thank Jeremy for involving me in Pure Tungsten, and also Tiger for welcoming me when I come over, and also to the viewers. Yeah, if you want to find out more about Pure Tungsten, a trip there would be a good thing. And I think there's a few people already that are going. And in terms of my content, I mean, I post every day. I try to keep abreast of what's going on in the markets, economics, and there's plenty out there right now, and things are changing very quickly.
Definitely, well said. All right, thank you, gentlemen, so much for joining today, and thank you for everyone for the great questions and watching. And with that, we'll slowly start going offline. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Excellent. I'll end the live stream there. Thank you, gentlemen.